Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity. And I'm a social scientist. I'm a teacher of sociology, a subject that deals with people and the multiple aspects of their life. I'm also a researcher who asks questions about why society is what it is and tries to find answers and use my research outcomes to make this society a better place to live in my own small way. And my research is not just academics, but I believe in a methodology that we have been using called the participatory methodology, where we always take the perspectives of people with whom we are working. Generally, the impression about academic research is that we decide what to study, we have a set of questions, go and get the data, write up a report or whatever, and then get your degree, get your promotions, etc. But as a student of sociology, what I learned from my mentors and teachers is that you must, give back to people what you have learned from them. So this is exactly what I tried to do. And I must tell you that what I'm going to talk about today is about my own experiences in a place called Joida. I don't know how many of you have heard of that, because even today in many maps of Karnataka, this is not shown. And what is surprising is that it is the largest block, or taluka as you call it, in the state of Karnataka. Now this happened because, at least earlier it was known by the name Supa, and the whole area got submerged when the first dam was built on Kali River, and it started getting operational in 1987. Several villages got submerged, agricultural land was lost, people lost everything. Even today, many of them have not got back anything that they lost, nor have they received compensation. So this region fascinated me as a student of sociology, because the forest has always, been a great source of attraction for me. Generally, when we talk of forest, we look at only the flora and the fauna, and not much attention is given to the people there. And very casually, they are referred to as, in Kannada, sometimes we say Vichitra, which means that they are strange. No, they have their own lives to lead, challenges to face. Forest fascinated me long time ago when one of my friends, wanted me to look at a forest development program here in Nagarhole forest. Since then, my journey with the forest is on. And when in late 90s, I got an opportunity to be part of a gender sensitization program, because my focus of interest has been largely on women. When I got an opportunity to address a group of forest officials, this program, was introduced in this country in late 1990s. You know that the forest has always been thought to be the property of the state ever since colonial times. But the people in the forest have always been fighting for their rights. They said, we are the ones who know how to make sustainable use of forests. So allow us to use the minor forest produce, make our livelihood, and also generate some income out of it. But they were not allowed to do that. So it was only in the year 1988 that a forest policy was formed, the National Forest Policy, which finally recognized that people must have a right over the lands that they have been living and using. So as the name itself suggests, this Joint Forest Planning and Management Program was an initiative in what we call as participatory or community forestry, where the people and the forest department share the benefits of a new program that they chalked out, calling laying village forest plantations. So I first got invited to a gender sensitization program for forest officialdom. And when I started speaking, I remember the kind of quite hostile reactions I got from some of the participants. And one gentleman even stood up and said, ma'am, I'm a PhD in botany. You want me to take advice from those illiterate women about what I should do and what I should not do? I did not lose my patience. 3 days we had arguments, disagreements. Finally, they came round. And so that was an inspiration for me to start working in the region and look at how women were getting involved in this joint forest planning and management program. The institution with which I got associated was called the Village Forest Committee, which was set up to operationalize this joint forest planning and management. And when I started looking at the composition, I could see that women were there only for filling up quotas. Not many of them even knew that they were members. And then coming back a little, so my interest in this region, began when I addressed that workshop. And so I got a fellowship from the Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute to work on a collaborative project both in India and Canada with the forest-dependent communities and look at women's role in forestry development program. So my first visit to that region was to a village called Deria. This friend of mine who had some experience of working in the region took me. And when I went there, I was greeted with a very hostile reaction from the community elders. In fact, the leader of that community, an elderly gentleman, almost beat me up because he was very angry that I wanted to work with women. Because women in that region neither had a voice nor visibility. So he pushed all of them into their homes and said, don't talk to her. And this was all in Konkani, because this region borders Goa and not many people are familiar with Kannada, our state language. And then he said, what do you want to ask these women? And why are you coming from there to give us any advice? He said, go. I was really disheartened because I traveled 600 kilometers from Mysuru, hoping that I'll be able to do some work there. Look at the way women were participating in the development of the forests in their region. And then but this friend of mine who had come with me just whispered into my ears and said, don't get disheartened. If these people know that you are sincere, he said, mark my words, they'll give their life for you. Though that, made me feel slightly better, I was disheartened, started leaving. Then suddenly a young man appeared on the scene. And then I came to know his name was Jayanand Direkar, the only college-educated youth in that area. And this gentleman, the leader of the community, was his uncle. And he told him, why when she has come all the way from there, he could speak a little bit of Kannada, why are you behaving like this? Let her come, let her work, we'll all support her. And there began a long-standing journey of bonding with him and other members of the Joida community. And I'll just share with you very briefly my own experiences there. First and foremost, I'll just divide my talk into two parts. One is about what are the conditions that I saw there, especially with reference to women, and what little we were able to do. The first thing I noticed, as I told you, was women were there only because they had to be there. Somebody took down their names. Most of them didn't know they were members. They never attended meetings. And if at all they went, they were pushed into a corner, not allowed to speak. And the basic problem was that none of them had gone to a school. And none of them knew how to speak Kannada. Because Konkani was their mother tongue. The whole community at some point of time had migrated from Goa. So they were feeling very embarrassed. So they were not allowed to speak out. None of them, as I said, had gone to a school, leave alone this generation. Even the younger girls never went to school because there were no schools close by. And in a dense forest, without public transportation, without pre-metric and post-metric hostels, there was no way of going to school. This is one thing that I noticed. The other shocking thing was that, and this is quite common in many parts of India, there were no toilets anywhere. And the women, you can imagine the kind of lives that they would have been leading. But they had no courage to ask, challenge patriarchy, ask these male leaders, questions about why they had to use the open forest. So no education, no exposure to the public because they were not allowed to talk to strangers, men or women. It didn't matter. And So it was in this kind of a situation that our work began. And I told you we use the participatory methodology. What is it that I mean by participatory methodology? It means talk to the people and ask them what they want us to do, which most researchers, to be very frank, don't do. So when we started inviting people from all walks of life in the community, where I said, I've got a project like this, these are our objectives, let us know what you want us to do. And I also want to share with you that there were 3 projects that I got from the Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute later to work in that area. So when the people were involved, they felt more confident. And for the first time, we took local youth as our community interns, we called them. Generally, interns are from an academic background. But my sponsor said, as long as your university has no problems, please take them. So this was one thing. Right from the beginning, I say, when you do research with small, rural, tribal communities, you should involve the local people. This is a lesson that I had learned. So this young man who came and met us on the first day of my visit joined us as a community intern and started working with us. We brought him to Mysuru, taught him Kannada, taught him English, and also got him to train in computers. And so we got a whole group of young men and women from there to train in Ramaiah here in street theater, because we thought street theater would be a good mechanism to reach out to people and address issues of critical importance in their local language. So one of the teachers, a primary school teacher who was in the group that we met said, if you can do it, create an infrastructure profile of this region. We have no problems getting to know about big cities and towns, but the people did not know what their villages had or what they did not have, more importantly. He did not use the word infrastructure profile, I am using it. So we started collecting data about all the infrastructural, I don't know whether I can use the word facility because there was absolutely no facility, that 456 human habitations in that taluka had. So finally we used all the local people to do this work for us. So we were able to bring out a publication in Kannada. English is available in soft copy, but we shared this with all the panchayats, with all the schools, with all the government offices. So this is an example of your knowledge generation becoming power. And since so many youngsters are here, knowledge is something to be shared. So for them, it became an instrument to demand for their rights. See, our village does not have this, does not have that. How far it is from the school, they started saying. And we were able to organize many interactive meets with forest officials, everybody. I'll just give you one example. When we had the first meeting, women were reluctant to come. They said, we can't speak your language. The forest official who was there at that point of time said, no problem, you speak in Konkani. And they came. And he said, please, tell us what you want us to do. When this lady, an elderly person, stood up to talk, she started in Konkani. And some of the men in the room said, don't talk that language, talk in Kannada. You know what she said? I don't know, because I have never been to a school. I speak the language which my mother speaks, because language is such a critical thing in bringing about change, development. So she said, I know only the forest. There is nothing like a Kannada forest and a Konkani forest. I will speak the language that I know. And she's asked, such critical questions, such as, for example, she said, you are giving contracts to outsiders to come and take minor forest produce from our forests. They're not bothered about the forest. Why don't you give us? Helps us not only to make a living, but also, sustainably use our environment. Because Joida is in the biodiversity hotspot of Western Ghats, and it's now declared an eco-sensitive government by the state. And she also said, look, when women's perspectives are brought into, certain things, how important it is. She said, you're now giving contracts to outsiders to come and take minor forest produce. And because this region is just situated next to Goa, people started coming inside the forest, setting up liquor outlets, and also because of the pesticides used in the plantations, people started, the aquatic wealth of the region got destroyed. So women had to go longer distances, and that sometimes, I'm not generalizing, resulted in abuse. So we were able to convince the people that were involved in the program that taking women's perspectives is very important in planning any program, in taking decisions. Now, how did we manage to bring some change? I'll end my talk with that. First was, people came out into public space for the first time. They never felt snubbed, especially women. People were there to listen to them. And there were a number of meetings that we were able to conduct with our research team, where we asked them to talk, share their experiences. And one of the first things that we were able to do was, after a long drawn struggle, motivate rural youth to demand for construction of toilets. Of course, in the kind of houses they had, they couldn't be accommodated inside the house, but companies from Bengaluru came forward to set up community toilets. And that was a big relief. How important it was for women is something that only those who have gone through a life without that can understand. And the other major initiative that our research was able to initiate was start ecotourism hubs with the participation of local people. We started telling them, you see, all the resorts, everything is controlled by outsiders. Why don't you do that? It took them 10 years, but they finally did it. But unfortunately, today, one very disturbing change that I see when I go there is that so many homestays, many of them not authorized, have come up. The ecological balance of the region is being destroyed. And this consortium, which our members, team members, along with their friends created, follows certain rules, but not everybody does. So, and another thing is, now they're having tuber melas. They had one in Mysuru also, recently in Bengaluru. They have about 80 varieties of tubers, many of which they did not know the worth of. So today women are able to participate in those tubers, genasu we say in Kannada. And now there are resorts, hotels that have come forward to use their knowledge to train their chefs to prepare these items. So this is just a small narrative that I have given of what this research that involved people was able to do. So even today, there are problems, but now what you see is a transforming Joida, as they call it. And I'm happy that people say that the whole process started because of our research. So all I want to tell you is that when you get an opportunity, please go to that region and support the local people. Thank you.